Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Vietnam Innovators. I'm your host, Hao. Thank you for tuning in week in and week out. Without you, this show would not be possible. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at the Worldwide Fund for Nature in Vietnam, the WWF-Vietnam. And today, with their support, we've invited two of our guests here today. We have Bill Possiel, the Chief Conservation Officer of WWF-Vietnam, and also Tim Evans, the CEO of HSBC Vietnam. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining today's show. Let's just start off with some basic introductions, and then we'll do some rapid fire questions, and then get into the podcast. Bill, over to you first. Why you're in Vietnam, what are you doing here, and same over to Tim.
I'm in Vietnam because Vietnam is one of the most biologically diverse countries on Earth. Number 16, and I've dedicated my career to biodiversity conservation. I've been doing this since the early 1970s, and I've worked in the region, in Myanmar and Singapore, and as a regional director for conservation in the Greater Mekong. And Vietnam is one of the more interesting countries in the region, and I was attracted to come and see what I could do to add value here.
Okay. Excellent, thank you, Bill. And Tim, you've been here for a number of years. Been a while at HSBC, but a different role, CEO of Vietnam. Please do share for the audience to
Yeah, so Hal, I've been here 3.5 years. It's been an amazing ride, but what brought me here in the first place is I used to cover 10 markets in Asia, of which Vietnam was one. And every time Vietnam appeared in my calendar, or a business trip to Vietnam appeared in my calendar, I got super excited. I just loved the energy, the opportunity, the food, the variety that the country offers. And so when there was an opportunity to apply for this role, I grabbed it with both hands, and I'm glad I got it. But it's been an amazing ride through good times and bad times with COVID, but I wouldn't change it for anything. It's just been an incredibly fulfilling experience to spend 3.5 years here.
We're going to start with some rapid fire question, guys, so why don't we just start there? No right or wrong answer. I think we just would love the audience to get to know you guys a bit better. So first, over to Bill. First question, what excites you about Vietnam?
Well, there are many things that excite me about Vietnam, but the people and the places are the two primary things that excite me. I've had the privilege of working with a fantastic group of people at WWF and meeting with people in rural communities in Vietnam, a very warm culture. And the places are just extraordinary, from north to south, the marine system. So those two things are the most exciting to me.
Excellent. And Tim, same question to you. What excites you about Vietnam?
The people and the energy.
Bill, over to you. If you had to explain to a stranger what you do at WWF Vietnam, how would you do it?
I would explain that we as an organization are dedicated to helping people live in harmony with nature, and we do that by working to empower people locally and also work closely with government.
Very good. And Tim, same question to you. If you had to explain to a stranger what you do at HSBC, how would you do it?
I work with an amazing team that tries to help Vietnam take its rightful place in the global economy, which means opening up a world of opportunities for Vietnamese companies, for the Vietnamese government, and for Vietnamese consumers.
Tim, next question over to you. What's an initiative at HSBC that you're very excited about right now?
I think the commitment that we made in January 2022, which was to lend Vietnam, or to help Vietnam raise up to $12 billion of sustainable financing. Vietnam had made a very strong commitment to COP26. It caught many by surprise. Talk is cheap, but action isn't. And the fact that we put that in place within a month of COP26, and we have achieved over $1.6 billion already, and hopefully more now the PDP8 has been signed. So I think that shows real commitment to helping Vietnam with one of its key strategic objectives, which is to transition to net zero.
Very good. And over to you, Bill, same question. What's one initiative at WWF that's worth mentioning today?
We're in the early phases of developing some very innovative projects around nature-based solutions. And that means, in the cases that are most exciting to me, working on forest projects that give carbon benefits, that support livelihoods, and protect nature.
So Tim, over to you. On a Sunday at 10 a.m., where would you be and what would you be doing?
I'd be on the first tee at Tu Duc Golf Course and trying to keep my ball on the fairway.
Okay, very good. Bill, same question to you.
Well, we spend an extraordinary amount of time working, so we work 7 days a week. Literally, the team at WWF, I found this to be an incredible work ethic that we have. And so at 10 a.m., I am either at the gym or working on a number of initiatives that working with WWF.
And last question before we start here today. Tim, what's your favorite Vietnamese word or phrase that you've learned in the last 3.5 years?
Oh, there's lots, but I'd go with co len, which means to strive or to struggle, but to really show commitment. And I think that really encapsulates the spirit of the Vietnamese.
Very good. First time anyone said that word, so thank you. Bill, over to you as well. What's your favorite Vietnamese word or phrase that you've learned?
I hate to be so simple, but one of the things that everyone says is in common. And there are much more complex statements. I've had a tutor for over a year, so I'm making some progress. But I think that the notion of a sincere thanks you find everywhere, from the taxi driver to the grocery store. And it reflects this culture.
As an American, we don't say that enough, I think.
Right.
So, very good. All right, guys, so we're going to get started here. Thank you for the insights, both of you. Let's start with Bill. Bill, you're a conservation expert. It's literally in the title of your role at WWF. And you're here to shed some light about what you guys do about energy transition, low carbon development. So we'd love to hear about what that role is exactly in the context of Vietnam. What are you doing to actually advance those goals? And how do those initiatives complement with WWF as an organization as a whole?
Well, really complex question. I'll try to keep it simple. We have a number of practices, from food to wildlife and forest practice, water, fresh water practice, and all these practices come together to try to make a difference for this synergy between nature and people in Vietnam and globally. And so what we do, we say in the nonprofit sector that we test our ideas in the marketplace every day, because we really rely on the support of public sector partners, intergovernmental organizations, bilateral agreements, and corporations like HSBC. So what we do is we attract investments in Vietnam. All of our projects are have to be approved by government, so we work very closely with government at the national, provincial level, and then we take those resources to drive change on these diverse array of programs: water, agriculture, we can talk more about that, nature-based solutions, forestry projects, and really thinking about how people rely on nature to be able to have a really excellent quality of life in Vietnam. So WWF is at that intersect of climate change. We're working on climate change and biodiversity and all of these elements that are so important to these two major initiatives.
Tim, please share us more about HSBC's kind of strategy there, both at a global and local level, and why locally, just a month after the Prime Minister announced the COP26 goals, you guys were able to move so quickly to announce such an ambitious program.
Yeah, so I mean, HSBC is a global bank, and climate change is a global problem, right? It's not just limited to Vietnam. It impacts all of us, and it transcends borders. And so we feel that as an international bank, we have a duty to help that transition to net zero. Everyone does. Governments do, investors do, consumers do, educational establishments do, individuals do. But we felt that given our international presence, we had to take a leading stand on that. And so HSBC at global level made a commitment that we would raise up to $1 trillion of sustainable financing globally. Now, to date, or at the end of last year, it was around $210 billion that we've done. But within or underneath that umbrella, what we decided to take was $12 billion and show real commitment to Vietnam. Now, we've been in Vietnam 153 years now. We feel we are an international bank, but we feel we're slightly more than that. We feel that we have to give back to the communities in which we operate. Vietnam is one of the top 5 countries most susceptible to the damages caused by climate change. And we wanted to provide assistance to the Vietnamese people and the Vietnamese government. And that's why we made that bold commitment straight afterwards, which was $12 billion.
Let's talk about some specifics. WWF, if I were to go speak with any of the the officers making these programs happen. It's everywhere from Tainan. I was speaking with a manufacturing expert yesterday about how they're working with H&M and Sedona Group to implement some fabric mill changes at a large factory for H&M there. $12 billion. That's a lot of money, Tim. Where is that going? Could you kind of highlight any key initiatives and projects that HSBC has been pushing along with its clients to facilitate?
So the short answer is yes and no. I can give you indicatively what we've done, but clearly there's customer confidentiality, so I can't share what's happening there. But it has been broad-based. So we've helped companies raise bonds, international bonds, to help drive their transition to net zero. We've offered trade loans for companies that are involved in import-export and would like to use that. We've financed real estate projects, which are LEED Platinum. But we've also done stuff ourselves, right? Because it's one thing to sit here as a bank and say, I will help you transition to net zero. But we also have our own ambitions to transition to net zero by 2030. So if I look at what we've done ourselves, we've converted one of our branches and made it LEED Gold. I think it was the first branch in Vietnam, so try and set the model there. We use recycled plastic for our credit cards. I had solar paneling put on the roof of my house about 2 years ago, which means for 6 months I have no electricity bill. And I take delivery next month of an e-vehicle because as the CEO of the organization, I feel that I need to model the way. And so we will be getting rid of our internal combustion engine car that I get to use and replacing that with an e-vehicle.
Okay, very good. Yeah, when I read about the adoption of EVs, a lot of it has to be led by the people making it happen, right? If it's easy to kind of pay lip service to say, hey, this is good, but making moves, that's another. And great to see that, Tim, on the HSBC side. Back over to Bill here. Let's delve deeper into WWF's viewpoints about this. And let's talk about the role of businesses in addressing climate change and promoting sustainability. How important is the private sector in making all this happen? Of course, for the government to set these mandates, you mentioned that you work with government quite a bit. What role do they play? How are they working with WWF? Let's paint that picture a bit.
Yeah, so I think the government role is critically important, and we know in Vietnam there's been real leadership. Vietnam signed on to the Paris Climate Agreement in December of last year, signed on to the Global Biodiversity Framework at the coming Montreal conference, COP15, and so government has to lead and provide a regulatory framework for private sector to be able to operate effectively in, and also to create a regulatory framework for people to know how to act related to illegal wildlife crime as one example. So the importance of, to answer your question about the private sector, is that this crisis that we have is a global crisis. We are right now in the midst of 6 global extinction event. All of the previous 5 were related to geologic events or a meteor hitting our planet. This is human caused. And so this is all hands on deck. We have to really all bring what we can to the challenge, and we turn to the private sector because that's at the root of our productivity, our economic gains, how people are employed. And without the private sector, we just can't succeed. So we really commend HSBC and other companies that have made commitments to reduce their carbon footprint through their activities and to address this challenge that we have at scale, and large companies and small companies as well have the opportunity to make a meaningful contribution to reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
Let's talk about if it's good for business or not, too. Because I'm sure HSBC, you've done your calculations. I'm sure it's very good for business, hence why HSBC is doing it. Let's be honest about that. It has to be good for business. So maybe you can also break down, for a lot of the corporations or even small businesses out there, they fear sustainability discussions because they think it's going to cost a lot up front and the return's just not really there. How quickly is that mentality changing? And maybe you can paint a picture about what those commercial outcomes are for that private sector folks to participate.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that in my career in conservation, I see great signs of hope, and I think it's important for us to communicate to the audience about a level of optimism that we need to have if we all roll up our sleeves and take positive action to address this existential threat. So I think that in terms of the private sector, I'll meander a little bit, and you can bring me back to course correct if you'd like, but I think that there are many companies that are taking positive action on water issues, on renewable resources, on recycling, as Tim just mentioned, on reducing their carbon footprint, et cetera. So there's a really positive momentum. The real challenge that we all have globally is that we have to accelerate these changes, because we are, in terms of having our greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and net zero by 2050, it's not fast enough to keep to 1.5, which is the Paris Agreement target, 1.5 degrees increase in temperature. And we can talk about the consequences of not keeping to 1.5 degrees. So the issue really needs to be focusing on acceleration. I was really pleased to read just this morning that Canada has made a commitment to go to net zero by 2035, just, I guess, yesterday or very recently. And that's kind of acceleration we need to see. We need to see acceleration on the part of government, on the part of the private sector. We have universities that are using their intellectual capital to really contribute to the changes we need to see. So, the key that I'll repeat over and over is the challenge of acceleration and innovation to be able to drive these changes we want to see.
Let's talk about that sense of urgency and how it applies in a commercial sense, Tim, because working at a bank, of course, we have our performance metrics, we have our shareholders. We need to show that a sense of urgency is not just good for the environment, but is good for business. How do you communicate that at your level within the company, but also to your clients about the need for this urgency? What kind of dividends can they expect? Literally dividends.
So I would like to just challenge you a little bit on that, because our commitment to doing or helping Vietnam transition to net zero, but helping our customers to transition to net zero in this market and others, is not driven by a KPI. It is fundamentally driven by it is the right thing to do. It is not done as a form of competitive advantage over other banks, because everyone has a role to play. If you look at the amount of financing that Vietnam needs, and the numbers anywhere between $300 and $400 billion by 2050, all banks have to come to the table. So I don't see it as a source of competitive advantage. We do it because it's the right thing to do. And the issue that you have, if you do make it a KPI for people and a performance metric, is that you run a risk of people doing greenwashing, which is a very real risk, which is I'm going to call it green because it's expedient to do so and I get credit for it, but actually I'm not supporting the transition. So fundamentally, a bank has to make sure that when we do a green loan or any form of sustainable finance, it is genuine and that the output of that is towards the transition to net zero. So that's the clarification of the opening statement.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
But what drives it? I think fundamentally what's driving it is partly government regulation. So companies have to adapt to that, but also consumer. Consumers are now asking, I want to transact with a company, or I want to buy products that are environmentally sensitive, that are not destructive to the environment. And that, as the consumer votes with their wallet, that is driving the behavior of a lot of companies. So a very well-known toy company established itself here, not far from Ho Chi Minh City, with a very big investment. That is a green plant. They've come to Vietnam because of Vietnam's commitment to transition to net zero, but also their consumers are demanding that they manufacture toys that are environmentally sensitive. So I think it's, as I said, the government, it's the consumer, it's the investor. Investors are now looking, where can I invest in a company that is doing the right thing for the environment? So if you are a brown company, it'll come to a point where it's going to be more expensive for you to raise finance because finance doesn't want to go there, and you will become uncompetitive. And I think that is the key. Those are the three key drivers that are driving this whole green initiative, and our job as a bank is to try and help facilitate that.
We have two guests here, of course, from two very different organizations, but with a common goal. Let's talk about how the two of you guys, your organizations, work together, and specifically about the Climate Solutions Partnership. So I'm going to shoot over to Tim first to address that, and then Bill right after. Yeah. So Tim, we'd love to hear you.
So as a bank, we're pretty proficient at lending money and getting it back, but we're not experts in climate change. Yes, HSBC has hired people, so we've hired clients climate scientists to our organization so that we can learn from them and they can teach our frontline bankers. But fundamentally, it's not what we do every day. And so we wanted to partner with an organization or two organizations, World Resources Institute and WWF, together so that we could make a difference. And so HSBC put up a fund of $100 million, and we have been working with the likes of WWF very effectively. So you referenced Hainan earlier. We have some energy transition projects that we're working on together there. But we're also working on nature-based solutions. So if you take the southernmost tip of Vietnam, Cà Mau, we decided that we would do 150 hectares of additional reforestation of mangroves, because that's part of adaptation or mitigation, because it stops erosion, it creates wildlife down there, it creates employment for the people down there, food safety. So we decided that we would do something like that together. But ultimately, we've done it as a partnership. We've got the funding. We have some knowledge, but not a lot. They have the expertise. So if we bring the two together, hopefully we can give something that makes sense to the community.
Very good. We're kind of similar. We're a platform. I don't know a whole ton about this topic, to be honest, hence why you guys are on the show today. And I think same for our audience. Actually, sustainability and related topics like financing and all that, it's the #1 requested topic from our audience right now in the last few months. Both the guests from the show, which I ask after the show is done, and also from our audience. So thank you for sharing those insights.
So that just shows, right? I mean, your audience are consumers. If they're asking it from here, they're also going to be asking it from the products that they buy and services they consume.
Can I add to something that Tim mentioned, and about the competitive advantage? And first of all, I'd like to say that the common, I think, language that we use at HSBC and WWF is that, #1, you do the right thing, and then #2, you do things right. And so there are cultural connections between our two organizations. And I'd counter, Tim, that the competitive advantage that's coming from the kind of culture that HSBC has and the commitments to climate goals, net zero by 2050, and your commitment to the Climate Solutions Partnership is in the marketplace, in the financial marketplace, a competitive advantage, because there are many banks and financial institutions that don't have the same core values, and so it's long-term versus short-term thinking. So if we think about short-term benefits and making a quick dollar, there are a number of investments that could be made that aren't sustainable investments, that don't help society, and that don't help the enterprise over the long term. And so these cultural shifts from the financial institutions are critically important. And how you mentioned, about the importance of the corporate sector, the financial sector, and the changes that are going on in the financial sector, and we hope continue to go on, are very, very important, because they drive the capital investments in ideas that get implemented in corporate activities, et cetera. And if they're looking at sustainability issues as a part of their loan portfolio, investment portfolio, then that helps to stimulate the kind of change we need to see.
Very good. Bill, I have a follow-up question for you here, because a lot of our listeners, I'm sure, own companies themselves, small or large, and are wondering, how do I get involved with this whole program that the two of you are talking about? Specifically, how Vietnamese businesses and international brand partners can collaborate through the CSP program specifically that's been set up. And how do you think those collaborations can advance the net zero goals? I'd love to hear your comment on that.
Yeah, well, it's really a difficult question, and I've worked with corporations throughout my entire career, and one of the things that you want to have is you want to stimulate employee pride, and that's one of the other comparative advantages for a company like HSBC. Young people going into the workplace, they want to work for an ethically minded company. And so you see the highly educated people, highly talented people migrating towards those companies that have the kind of values that they have and they would like to have in whatever business enterprise they are involved in. So companies can get involved by, #1, evaluating their practices. And there are a number of ways. I think about the the Science-Based Targets Initiative. This is an initiative with WRI that we work with the HSBC and WWF and the United Nations. And the Science-Based Targets Initiative is a voluntary program where companies share information about how they're trying to achieve sustainability goals. And there are over 5,700 companies that are a part of the Science-Based Target Initiative, and there are about 2,800 companies that have committed to net zero. That's just one way to really think about your practices, not only on a regular basis in terms of what a company does, but also their supply chains. And that's what the various scopes that are called Scope 1, 2, and 3 in the climate agreement relate to, is how a company reduces its greenhouse gas emissions, its footprint, but also looks at the supply chains and how they can affect the supply chains and related to carbon emissions. So there are many ways. One of the challenges for NGOs is that many companies want their employees to go out and get involved in voluntary activities, and that's very, very challenging to do because of the permits required in Vietnam to be able to bring people out to a particular rural province, and designing activities, etc. So I guess I come back to changing practices, focusing on your core business, philanthropy where it can be made, and looking for leverage, and everyone's looking for investments that are highly leveraged. So thinking about that from a corporate perspective, and the size of a company from small, medium enterprises to large corporations. It doesn't really matter if, as I mentioned earlier, if we're going to have this change, we need to all figure out what contribution we can make.
Okay, very good. Same question, but adjusted a bit for you, Tim. Your customers at the end of the day are these companies, and they perhaps need financing to achieve these large goals. And sometimes it's expensive. So how do they make it sustainable and long-term ROI positive in terms of the amount needed to make these things happen? So my question for you, Tim, is about the Green Finance Initiative at HSBC. What are those products exactly, and how can a business interact with HSBC to make those programs a reality?
So what we're seeing in Vietnam is incredible receptivity in the large corporate space. And after 3.5 years in this market, I think there's nothing that Vietnamese like more than overcoming an obstacle. So we've seen this incredible receptivity of large corporates. And it doesn't start with financing, How. It starts with, can you help me understand what do I need to put in from a policy perspective? What frameworks do I need to put in? What validations do I have to make sure that it is a bona fide green project? So it starts more with information sharing, and the benefit of being in over 60 countries globally is we can bring that context to them, right? This is what's happening in Taiwan around wind energy, this is what's happening in Korea. So it starts off with that learning, and then it gets into the space of, okay, now I feel ready to make that transition and take on a real, genuine green loan. And it can be a loan, as simple as a loan, it can be a guarantee, it can be a bond, it can be a trade facility, it can be a social bond. So there's a panoply of products that are there. But I think that the Vietnamese corporates at the top end are embracing it. Those in the middle market and small enterprises are probably slightly behind. But I feel that it's not cost that's holding them back. A green loan is not more expensive than a conventional loan. But I think there's a realization, certainly at the big corporates, that if I align to this trend, if I understand what it means to be green, I'm positioning my organization for the future. And as a CEO, your job isn't to manage for today. Your job is to anticipate what is the future and how do I capture the opportunities going forward. And what I've seen so far from large Vietnamese corporates, they've identified that this transition to net zero is important for the country, but also for their future business plans. And so they've embraced it.
Great. Yeah, so those finance products, you guys have packaged it with education, with content, with case studies, access, WWF perhaps. So that's a good point to make. It's not just a loan. It's much more than that. It's education to facilitate that. Very good, cool. A little bit of advice perhaps you could offer to Vietnamese corporations, especially the ones listening today. I'm sure a lot of sustainability managers and likes are listening today with keen interest about how to make this happen. So Tim, my question for you would be, how can you encourage these corporations to become and think more environmentally friendly and to reduce their carbon emissions. What's some practical advice you can offer them today?
I think it's look at the future, make the changes today, because we do have a burning platform, right? The longer that we take to address climate change, the more expensive it will be to adjust, and the bigger impact it will have on us economically and socially. So the time is now. Take the time to learn and start that process. Don't kick the can down the road. And we're there to help, as are other financial institutions, right? This transition to net zero is not just an HSBC play. Lots of financial institutions can help. There's consultants that can help. But get on board, because this is the next big impact on industry, life, finance, business. And so you can't sit back. If you do sit back, you will be left behind. And if you're left behind, you will lose business. So there is a business incentive to do the right thing as well.
It's future-proofing your business. There you go. Thank you.
Can I add to that?
Please, yes.
I think that in terms of small and medium enterprises and large corporations, any business needs to be thinking about the long term. Even small businesses that are family enterprises and thinking about building something to pass on intergenerational wealth. Thinking long term requires us to think about the impacts that we are having. And I've seen a number of companies in the greater Mekong and other areas that are making those kinds of decisions, that may be giving up a little bit of profit, but feeling really good about what these companies are doing, that they're helping make a difference. And I think there's a moral imperative that's associated with climate change. We know that there's a preponderance of evidence that this is taking place, and we've seen it for the past 8 years have been the warmest on record. July of this year is the warmest month ever recorded. We have ocean temperatures coming up. We have catastrophic fires in many countries and landscapes. And so if we want to think about the long term, we need to think about what we can do about this issue. You know, I remember reading somewhere that no one can profit on a dead planet. If we have climate change reach, and we are seeing extraordinary environmental changes, if we reach a tipping point, then everyone suffers. You know, I think about this and related to the COVID vaccine. Science and mRNA technology was developed in such a rapid pace because of artificial intelligence and many other, technologies, science that was brought to bear. And we developed a vaccine that was widely adopted. And I remember hearing no one is safe until everyone is safe, related to the COVID vaccine. And I think it's the same thing for climate change. No one is safe until everyone is safe, because this is not just an issue that impacts people here in Vietnam. It impacts everyone globally. So I think it's a really important issue to highlight.
Okay, very good. One of the last questions I always like to ask my guests on my show is, what would they like to know more about? And that's because when we invite guests onto the show, we want to be providing value to our audience, some insights that they would have discovered and not otherwise known. I know the two of you are experts in what you do, conservation, sustainability. Tim, albeit on the more financing side, but the same area as well. What would you two like to know more about? It could be within sustainability, perhaps it's like water conservation, perhaps it's biodiversity, or maybe it's something completely different, like EVs. I would love for you to share more about what you two would like to know more about to make your jobs easier, better, or just because you're curious. So maybe I'll start with Tim, and then same question over to Bill.
Wow, what would I like to? I mean, it's a very long list, Hal, and I think we'll go on for a long time on your
list
program.
One or two, it's up to you.
But I would like to learn more about the technology that will help us address climate change, whether it's carbon capture, but as Bill referenced, our ability to create vaccines very quickly meant that we were able to get out of COVID. And I think that the transition to net zero technology will play a very, very key role in that. And I just want to get a better understanding of what that technology is, where is it, who's developing it, and how do you bring that to the market quickly?
Yeah, very good. I mean, my quick comment on that would be, I don't know either. I have to do a bit of research. And I think if any of you have an answer to Tim's question, please leave your comments in below, and we'd love to hear from you. Maybe a startup, a bigger corporation, or an individual. Tim and I would love to hear from you. Good question. Good answer there, Tim. Over to you, Bill, as well. What would you like to know more about personally or professionally to help achieve your goals just a bit better?
If I was a younger man, I would want to know more about how natural systems function in greater detail. I think that, and back to your original question about what attracted me to come to Vietnam, the diversity of species here, the richness of species is phenomenal. And we have lost species. HSBC has helped us in Dak Lak to help to protect elephants. In a previous grant, there are about 100 Asian elephants left in Vietnam. There used to be 100,000. The Saula, called the Asian unicorn, we have a program right now with EU support to try to determine if there are any Saula left in the central Annamites. We lost last Javan rhino in 2010. And when I think about what's happening in terms of defaunation, we don't have a real sense of what is happening at the species level, the interactions between the species. And we don't, and every year there are new species discovered in Vietnam.
Right.
And so we're spending huge amounts of money. I think about the space race and Elon Musk's desire to, go to Mars. And yet we don't really understand
what's going on here,
the organisms on our planet, and new organisms discovered in the deep ocean. I mean, so I was drawn to this work by that interest and curiosity about the interactions between species in the natural world. And because of my career path, I've ended up moving more into a management role, but that's still the driving passion.
Yeah, when you mentioned that there's rhinos and elephants in Vietnam, I'll be very honest with you, I didn't even know that was a fact. I thought
there were rhinos. There were Javan rhinos.
Yeah, I mean that's incredible because from a young person's perspective, young people, like going to parks or experiencing nature and all that, or the idea of like seeing an animal, that might not be the reality very soon, or at least these types of animals. I'm sure there's others, but how do we spark the imagination of the next generation to even know that these exist in a place like Vietnam? It's not just some faraway land, it's actually here as well, but it's disappearing, or perhaps we're not documenting them enough. So very good. I think I'll ask my team to go research, find some content, find some excerpts about that. If you are an expert about that, leave your contact or your email in the description. We'd love to hear from you about what we could feature more about for these two particular topics. Thank you so much, Bill, for sharing that. I think that wraps up today's show. I think lots of great insights. I think if you're a corporation, a small business, anyone, you want to learn more about green finance, you want to know more about biodiversity, conservation, these two know a lot about it. Of course, their team would as well. We'll leave the website and kind of information about both companies in the description. You can research on your own or let us know and we'll connect you as well. Thank you so much, Tim, Bill, for being on today's show and sharing some insights to our audience. It's a pleasure to have you. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Vietnam Innovators. We've done hundreds of episodes. Without you, this show would not be possible. See you guys next week. From 2020, HSBC, WRI, and WWF have teamed up in an initiative called the Climate Solutions Partnership, or CSP, to scale next-generation solutions to climate change. The partnership aims to help accelerate an energy transition in Asia. The partnership also aims to bring emerging climate solutions to commercial viability and scale. It will do this by supporting sustainable projects that would otherwise face barriers to finance due to insufficient policy and regulatory frameworks, gaps between demand and supply, or a lack of mature measurement tools and business cases. By focusing on on-the-ground projects, it will help to catalyze systematic solutions to address climate change, while also delivering for people and nature in key markets.